everybunny, I'm Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of ghost buns, and welcome back to the Disney debate where is everyone? Cat? Doug? Phil? They're not here. Cat, why weren't you at elf practice?
I'm cramming for my dental exam. You know how hard it is to get a dental license up in the North Pole? God.
Doug, why weren't you at elf practice?
Scheduling conflict.
Phil, why weren't you at elf practice?
Because I'm not usually supposed to be here. This ain't my show.
He's not supposed to
Oh,
be
right,
here
it
today.
isn't your show. How do you get fired on your day off? Phil, you're fired.
You always fire
Yeah.
me.
No, we need him for the Christmas special. Shut up.
Well, actually, today is the one day I cannot fire Phil because we have a very, very special episode for you today. First of all, how's it going, Kat?
Oh boy, it is Christmas season, everyone. I hope you got your shopping done. I hope you got your wrapping done because the fun begins. Hooray! Twitch, 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 twitch.
Yes, it is time for our annual Christmas special, Christmas. And as usual, we have a film to talk about from the Disney catalog that in some way involves Christmas. And while I suggested Star Wars The Holiday Special, that was vetoed. So we're going to be talking
Ew.
about the third Santa Claus film. But before we get into that, Doug, how are you?
Is it January yet?
No, then we gotta do taxes.
Wake me up when September ends.
That's
September
too far.
ended 2 months ago.
It did? Oh god, I'm behind on my taxes. And Phil, how are you doing today?
I'm doing nice. I'm happy to be joining this this yearly Christmas special on Boxing Day, which is likely when it's going up. But yeah, to give viewers at home a little bit of insight, and this goes back for like 2, maybe 3 years. Zen and I have this document, this Google Doc of like all future Disney debate episodes, because I decided one day, like, I was like, you know what? It would be very convenient for us if we could just, compile every film that like needs to be covered for the Disney debate, like back to back to back to back, like in one big Google Doc, just for convenience sake. And so I ended up doing that for the team. So I put that document together and I was looking through it and I was like, you know what, Zen? It's your show and Cat Show and Doug Show, so I don't mean to intrude, but would it be fine with you guys if for select episodes you let me come on to talk about the movies with you guys? And Zen was like, hey, that's totally fine with us. So there are a few films in the Disney catalog that I will be joining for. Won't say all of them, but I will say the Winnie the Pooh series, every single one of those. Call me. Call me for those, because I love me some Winnie the Pooh. But weirdly enough, I did say, Santa Claus 2, I'll pass, because like, the team had already done Santa Claus 1 by that point. And Santa Claus 2, I was like, whatever. But I was like, Santa Claus 3 with freaking Martin Short as Jack Frost. Sign me up when you get to that point, because that is, weirdly enough, the Santa Claus movie I have seen the most in my lifetime. But I'm sure we'll get to that as we go on.
You poor child.
So yeah, today's a bit special because we have Phil joining us. We are doing the third film in a series of films that we've talked about for a while, and there's a lot to talk about this film.
I did, Sorry, I did double check, and it is funny, because, like, you guys have kind of alternated with the Santa Claus, like, every other year, because, like, the last Christmas special before you went on that, like, big 2-year hiatus was the Santa Claus, and then the second Christmas special after that was Santa Claus 2, and now 2 years later, it's Santa Claus 3. Looking forward to 2 years from now when you guys cover this season 1 of the Santa Clauses.
Well, now that you mention
Oh,
it, we have
God,
to keep up the trend.
We have to keep up the tradition. This has been a long time coming. You know, back in the early days, we decided every Christmas and every Halloween that we were going to start doing Disney Halloween specials and Disney Christmas specials. And at first I was thinking, oh well, I don't know how much Christmas stuff we got. We covered The Nightmare Before Christmas and a few other things. And then we started compiling a list of all the stuff we have. There's a lot. There is a lot. But we wanted to stick to a theme. So we did a little bit of like, okay, the Santa Claus, and then we talked about Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas and A Christmas Carol. We wanted to stick to a theme because, you know, stuff that we knew, and because apparently Doug doesn't want to watch the Star Wars Holiday Special. Go figure.
Do you blame me?
Now, if it was the Lego Star Wars Christmas Special, then like I think that would be a different story entirely.
Now that I'd be willing to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Or the Guardians of the Galaxy Christmas Special.
Oh, that was
Yes.
cool.
Earthlings are so weird. But we have thus far covered the Santa Claus. We've covered the Santa Claus 2. We briefly mentioned the Santa Claus 3 a few times in various different things. Like, we talked a little bit about it in Frank and Weenie, and we talked a little bit about the Santa Clauses. So I want to state a few things for the record right here now, because so far I have not seen the Santa Clauses. Kat, I don't believe you have seen it either.
No, I've seen the whole thing. I saw all 2 seasons.
Oh, you've seen the whole thing.
So it is
Okay.
going to be extremely hard for me to hold my tongue in this episode because there are things that I know that kind of factor into this movie and adds to the aggravation of it for me. But I will not say anything because we're obviously going to get to that, you know, in 2 Christmases from now. So I won't say anything, but I will heavily imply that certain things are like made undone or obsolete by virtue of that series and this movie.
So, with that being said, I have decided, I made the executive decision that we're approaching this film as if the Santa Clauses did not exist yet.
Mhm.
Because it's not in this movie.
Because it didn't.
It didn't. It didn't exist at this point. So, if anyone
That
wants
was a
to
different
say in the
timeline.
comments about how the Santa Claus does stuff, no spoilers, please, but, like, we know that they retcon things. We're bitching about things that happen in this movie in relation to the previous films. Doug, would you agree with that?
Yes, or at least anything prior to the Disney Plus series. Yeah, because as I just stated, that's a different timeline. Because as we experience in this movie, there is some wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff. So yeah, plus which
There's
obviously
some stuff to talk about there.
Plus, you know, that series is supposed to take place after the fact. You know, obviously, I think it expands on some stuff that happens in the other 3 movies. But point is, this came first, so, you know, that series doesn't exist yet.
Yes, and I haven't seen it. Phil, have you seen it?
The Disney Plus show? No, I have not. It doesn't have Martin Short in it, so I'm not interested.
So that's kind
exactly
of how
why
we're
I watched
approaching
it.
There are good things that I've heard about the first 2 seasons. Which, you know, I hear it really delves into the lore, but let's briefly sum up the first 2 films, because Phil hasn't gotten his thoughts out on them. Obviously, we talked a lot about the first film. My consensus on the first Santa Claus is that it's the best, simply because while it has some elements that haven't aged well, like, you know, a random kid coming to sit on this old man's lap and a few things in that regard. I think it has this heart to it. It has this charm, and there's something that draws you into it. it's not just Tim Allen being Tim Allen. It is, the elf saying, believing is seeing. There's a lot of like little things that say the magic of Christmas isn't about having proof that Santa Claus exists. It's about having faith. And it's faith in the terms of Miracle on 34th Street. Not like a religious faith, but faith in that you're doing good for the world. And that's what I like about it.
And if it means that you have to kill Santa to do so, well...
So be it.
Yeah, if you kill the man, he falls off the roof, you put on the suit, it's in the claws.
What's it? Like, did he die though? Because obviously we're not counting the Santa Clauses. I know that series does some stuff, but like, I did like. So okay, so from my perspective, just to lay it out there, I actually had not seen the Santa Claus 1 in full until me watching it just like this past week. I'd always seen like bits and pieces of it, but I'd only ever watched the second and third movie, and when he like quote unquote dies and like he's like clenching his fist like as if he's like waving goodbye, I kind of took that to be like, okay, he didn't actually like die there, right? Like I don't know, like I think the first movie like
my
leaves,
tongue.
I mean, yeah,
biting my tongue.
yeah,
It
Like-
became
like,
one with
okay.
the Force.
Here's my thought, because this is shown in the first movie and this movie. He falls off the roof. He disappears. He's a Jedi becoming one with the Force. To me, he's dead until they say otherwise.
If it helps, we did point out in
Kat.
the first one. We did point out in the first movie how, if you notice throughout the beginning, like when they show crowds of children, you notice there are elves planted like around there, like with the children. And if you also notice when they finally go to the North Pole for the first time, the elves are weirdly nonchalant about this stranger and his kid being in Santa's sleigh. Almost like they knew this was gonna happen.
yeah.
So, and they're like real matter of fact about reading the clause and saying like, yeah, you put on the suit, you're the big guy now, you're in charge, all right, let's get back to business, people. So, it does give off that vibe that this was planned.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not as dark as it initially is portrayed to be, but they really don't clarify things, like I said, until much later on.
It's Santa.
Yeah.
You killed him.
Oh my god, you killed Santa!
You bastard! He's getting better.
What I will say about this is that I feel like there's a charm to it that pervades through this. You can tell something was planned. There's a lot that you can get on a rewatch of this film, which is more than I can say of some of the other films. It has this message to it of continuing the tradition of Christmas without trying to adhere to the exact letter of the tradition. It's really nice. Doug?
Yeah, I mean, obviously that kind of tends to happen with franchises. Like, there's a lot of rehashing and, a lot of tropes that go through, but I guess, sometimes it's not always the same exact thing. Obviously, this one, this franchise, they have to do a different, thing each time. It's like, first one's, him becoming Santa. Second one, oh, he has to take a wife. The third one is, what if he had never been Santa? So, in some ways the same, in other ways different. I guess we'll talk more about the rehashing as we go along, but yeah, that's pretty much what the franchise has been.
All right, Phil, what do you think of the first film?
I like it. I thought it was like the first words out of my mouth. Like once I had finished watching the first film, was like, that was a cute little movie. Like it was, the jump watching like how the first film's tone is and like how that film goes all the way to like what happens in the third movie is very big and very jarring. But like I I'm a weirdo because like I like it when stuff like that happens. Like I love. Like Cinderella 3. Like I love, when franchises get ludicrous and like when they're not if they're not taking themselves like super seriously and they like, you know, and they just have fun with it. Maybe that's like, maybe it's the inner Kingdom Hearts fan in me talking, but like I love it when franchises get ludicrous like that. But to see like the humble beginning of like the first film being like, you know, this classic of a Disney Christmas movie, like it was nice. I liked, you know, seeing his relationship with Charlie and like, you know, seeing that sprout up. I did like, I will say, like, watching that movie, I was just kind of like, really, is it really like that big of like of a deal that like Charlie like thinks his dad is Santa Claus? Like, it's like, yeah, like I could kind of see it from the perspective of like the adults when he starts, like when his body starts changing. But like early on, I'm like, is it that big of an issue? But like in general, I really enjoyed it. I put it this way on my I made like a small Blue Sky thread regarding the trilogy. I noted that like the first one is the most timeless and classic and probably has the best story. The second one, I think, probably balances like the vibe and the tone and the character moments the best, and is like honestly probably the one I'd consider the best like overall. And the third one is the most stupid and ludicrous and fun movie, and it's the one I prefer the most. But let's talk about the Santa Claus 2 before we get to that point.
Like, here's the thing. I like 2. I think 2 is a good movie. My biggest problem is that they don't give enough time for the relationship between him and the principal to even develop.
Agree.
Why did they tell him this only a month beforehand?
Yeah, it's like looking back at the first movie, I was surprised to be like, oh, okay, so this film takes place over the course of an entire year, from one Christmas to another. I think the second movie would have been greatly benefited from like having a similar time frame, like if not a full year, then like at least maybe like a few months, maybe 6 months, like something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is a Disney film, so, you know, romance has to happen in like a week or less. It's tradition.
Yeah. I feel like having 2 plots did work, but the fact that his son was on the naughty list and he only had a month, it started to feel a little bit more forced than the first film. Whereas, like, okay, so yeah, they could have told him about the Mrs. Claus at any point in time, but they choose a month beforehand. And as the film went on, the heart really won me over. There's some really great character moments. When he gives the presents at the Christmas party using the Christmas magic. When
that's my favorite scene.
He tells his principal the truth. Like, there's some great character work, and I think overall that's what this film does. And when you learn why he became a member of the naughty list and why he's acting out, that was great. I just feel like it's very backloaded.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like that scene, like where he's giving out all the presents at like the work function, like that's probably my favorite scene in the movie, if not one of my favorite scenes in the trilogy, because like it kind of shows like that's what it's kind of what I mean by like the vibe and the tone is like just right. It's why I think the second movie is probably the one I consider like the best overall, because like even if the first one has the better plot, because I do agree the second one I think rushes things a lot. I think like it juggles a lot of plot points a little too much, but like I think the reason why I'd say it's probably the one like that's the best is because the heart is like the most apparent, and I think it strikes that good balance between silly, ludicrous, like fun that like we see a lot of in the third movie, and like the down to earth, the down to earth heart of the first one, and like seeing that blend in the second movie with scenes like at the work function, or like when Charlie's telling his principal about like his dad and like showing her the snow globe, and like all those scenes, like I think like the second movie is just the coziest of all these films.
I could definitely agree with that. Plus, it introduces more characters. It gives us Peter yeah. Cut that out, Phil.
No.
it introduces new characters. It has Peter Boyle as one of the main characters, as what is it, Father Time, and he's great. I like all the expanded characters, but the best addition is the Molinator. You have the Molinator, and he automatically makes the film so much better.
Yeah,
and,
I like
he does return in this film.
I like all of the like holiday I forget the official
legendary
name.
figures.
The legendary figures. I like all of them being introduced. I like being introduced to Conrad from the Cat in the Hat live action movie.
Oh God.
Oh God! Yay! One of my other favorite characters.
Now, to be fair, he was in the first film, and we're gonna get in touch with him. Like, there's a lot of like elves that were background characters that were put in a more prominent position in the second film, and it still works. But I do want to give special mention Art LaFleur and Peter Boyle, since they're no longer with us. They did great. So, and plus Aisha Tyler as Mother Nature, like before she was hosting on E3, she was here. Before she was helping Ubisoft. So yeah, I like the Santa Claus too. Kat, what is your thoughts?
I'm a bit polarized with Santa Claus 2.
Polarized.
Not intentional, I assure you. But yeah, again, it's like I both love and hate this movie, because keep in mind, I was a kid when I saw the first movie in theaters. Yes, I'm that old. But yeah, by the time the second one came out, I wasn't gung-ho about seeing it in theaters, but I had younger siblings, so I went with them just because. And I liked all the stuff with the relationship with, him and Carol falling in love. And I love the whole familiar relationship with him trying to bond with Charlie now that he's older and now that he's lashing out as teenagers do and everything. I like that part. What I didn't like was the plastic Santa clone with the plastic tushy. And basically this whole thing turning into a dictatorship with an army that takes him down Home Alone style. Oh yeah, not to mention
Robo
Curtis.
Santa is creepy. Robo Santa is horrifying.
I will say though, Robo Santa does get some like pretty funny moments. Like when he drinks the hot cocoa, it's like I can't help but chuckle at a few of those moments. Like I can't even lie.
To be fair, these movies make hot cocoa sound really good every time they talk about it. But yeah, like I said, it's parts like that, the childish parts that I didn't really like. And I'm not saying I hate childish things or stupid things like that. I have fun with like stupid shit. But with this one, it's like, I don't know, it just felt like they were going for two wildly different tones here. It's like, oh, we want to deal with these grown-up relationships and, like, give it some emotion and depth and nuance, but then we also have, like, an army of elves, like, launching snowballs at these giant nutcrackers, and, like, and then you kind of just lose me there, so, yeah, like I said, it has some good stuff, but it's not my favorite. I still like it leagues better than Santa Claus 3, though, I'm sorry.
Doug.
Yeah, much like you said, this one, it has problems of, Santa Claus 2 I'm talking about, it has problems of, rushing through things, and there's some questionable stuff to it, but it does kind of get a pass because it is, it's got the heart, like Phil said. So yeah, I mean, it's passable. I obviously, I think we should have spent a little more time on, the romance plot, instead of rushing through it, giving him more of time than this, like, less than a month deadline. I know obviously certain things had to happen at the time for, them to, have the plot, but whatever the case, yeah, it was a little too rushed, but at least it still maintained the heart. I can't really say the same about Escape Clause.
Okay. I know Phil likes this movie, so this is the first time in a long time that we're actually having a Disney debate. But with that said, let me launch into a little bit about it. We're going to kind of take this piece by piece, because a lot of my gripes have to do with problems with it ignoring the first two films, while still trying to adhere to the first two films. So, okay. In the first film, if you put on the suit, you put on the hat, you become the Santa. You have to become the Santa. He was kind of guilted into it, although they gave him time to realize that he wanted to be the Santa. They scouted him out. Okay, kinda has a little bit of problems, but it has heart and made sense. Second film. You only have a month to get a wife, otherwise you lose the powers. What happened to the first clause? But still, it worked in the sense of the film. The Santa Claus 3 has 3 main plots. But before we get to the plots, the biggest problem of the film, in my opinion, and Eliza's, is that this film is being narrated to us by Mrs. Claus. He is now married to Carol Newman, and this is Mrs. Claus teaching a group of young elves history and telling a story of what happened when their baby was born. Already we have the premise of Cinderella 2.
It simply isn't done.
And here's the thing. This type of premise can work if it was being told by a character that wasn't, that we don't know was involved in the events. There are ways to do this where it's like, hey, a character that you didn't know was going to be the main character, or I hate to give this praise, but the new Snow White live-action film where Dopey is narrating the story. That was actually well done, because you don't expect it. But here, we have Carol narrating this, losing all tension that we ever would have had with any of the problems in this film having any consequences. Kat?
How did you know about the parts you weren't there for?
But didn't she only narrate from one scene? Because I only remember her talking about stuff in the opening scene
and the ending.
She basically is there as the opener and the closer. Everything else, the movie can exist on its own without her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a whole setup thing, and I agree with Zen. It doesn't really make sense that she's the one telling the story. It's yes, I get she's part of the events for the most part, but it feels to me like maybe it should have been told from a more neutral party or someone who was more directly involved, like maybe Scott himself. Or even Jack Frost, people who were part of the whole time travel thing and would have actually been there to talk about this.
or people who would have, we might have thought actually won if Jack Frost was narrating the story.
Or heck, even Father Time. He's the god of time. He could have told this story, and he would have seen everything going on. Granted, it would have brought up questions as to why he didn't interfere, but, legendary figures are weird like
that. Phil, what are your thoughts on this?
So I will say that, there were a few inconsistencies I felt with the first two movies. I will agree on that front. One I noticed, and, this isn't even, the biggest one, because, I could suspend my disbelief that, this could happen. But, one thing I've noticed, as early as, the first movie, is that, while, while, Scott and his ex-wife, I'm forgetting her name, was it Laura?
Yeah,
while they were obviously butting heads a lot of the time because they were divorced, even as early as the first movie, it seems like they had settled decently well. And by the third movie, they're completely cool. They're all good with each other, and I've always liked that because I like showing divorce in a healthy manner in that regard, where it's not you're not just showing the constant bickering. It's we're well past that point at now, we're showing them in the aftermath of like them just getting along and being friends. So I've always liked that, even if the first movie has the conflict of, you know, them thinking Scott is taking the whole Santa thing too far. But like we get to the third movie, and when they go back in time and Jack Frost becomes the new Santa, like they have, as a part of this like new future, they have like Laura and Charlie be like so like distant and like bitter about like Scott not being around. And like, to be fair, that's like an additional 12 years onto like when the first movie happened anyway. But like, it did make me like question it a little bit, where I'm like, you know, it does feel a little inconsistent with the first movie, where like they weren't on like that bad of terms, like even when Scott was like already like going through like his own character arc in that movie regarding, you know, needing to be there for Charlie and needing to like be the father that like he needs to be for him. And like, it felt like with Santa Claus 3 that like they didn't really like pay too much mind as to like how things like thematically connected to the first two movies, or like character-wise connected to the first two movies. Which is funny because there are some other ways where I feel like it tries to address things from the other two movies to varying degrees of success. But like, I will agree that like I do think there are a bit too many like inconsistencies with the first two movies, even if I do like the third movie myself.
Yeah, like, there's some things that we're going to bring up in this regard. I like how they bring up Neil saying, like, look, he didn't want me to be his father. They pushed me away. That's why we divorced. I think that kind of works, because the only reason why Neil kind of stuck around was for Charlie, and like the relationship really worked with the three of them. That was really cool. But there is a lot of things that don't really add up. There's 3 different plots with a framing device told by Carol. Let's talk about each individual plot. The first one is basically a non-entity, and I hate it. Mrs. Claus is upset because Santa is spending all his time getting ready for Christmas and doesn't have any time for her to make a baby, and might be delivering presents when the baby is about to be delivered. And yet we see throughout the entire film, aside from one thing, he has been so supportive. He's been so helpful. He has dropped basically everything, and it's only thanks to the wiles of someone else that he looks bad. He is there for her. And there's one point in the film where he's like, don't be sad. Like, he's actually comforting her. Like, not with the tears. Like, he's not even being Tim Allen about it. He's just like, he's trying to comfort her because she's being, I don't like to use the word hysterical, but she is being hysterical in this scene and crying because she thinks that he's not going to be there when the baby comes, which I don't get why that's super necessary when he's Santa Claus and has all this responsibility, but he's trying, and one of the elves kicks Santa. And I'm just like, this is the most forced negative conflict ever, Doug.
Okay, I'm going to debate because
Okay.
Yeah, if we recall, it's Carol. Did she not, in the last movie, basically get dragged to the North Pole and then kind of forced to make this snap decision to agree to something she didn't even really know the full terms of?
Mm-hmm.
And now it's
Fair.
like, you know, she's supposed to be expected to, you know, be romantically involved with him. So if, you know, Santa's not going to be giving her all, you know, enough focus, we'll say. I'm not going to say he's not giving her any focus, but if, you know, if she's not getting enough focus, then I can't blame her for being upset about this. She, you know, agreed to something that, you know, at the time it was just so rushed that, you know, how could she know what was going to happen in the future? That, you know, oh, I'm gonna be, married to basically a workaholic.
If I could
So-
add on,
Okay, fair
if I
point.
could add on to that, actually, like, I will say, like, watching these movies back to back was very interesting because, like, in the second movie, like, in that scene where Scott explains for the first time to her, like, I'm Santa Claus. Like, near the start of that conversation, she's like, oh, there's no rush. We don't have to, like, we could take our time. Obviously ironic given, Scott's predicament. But then by the ending, it's like, oh, this is all happening so fast, and they're, like, swept up in the moment. But, like, by the time Santa Claus 3 happens, it's still, like, relatively, like, not too far in the future. I was actually, like, surprised at the release dates of, like, the first and second movie being, like, 8 years apart. I was like, oh, damn, the first movie came out, like, that long ago? Holy shit. I always thought it was, like, a late 90s sort of thing. But the time between 2 and 3 was only 4 years. And 4 years is still, like, a decent amount of time, but it's still enough time where it's, like, there can still be these, like, feelings of, like these feelings catching up to you as life settles in. And, like in that scene early on, I don't think, like, she was necessarily, like, angry at Scott because, like, he's been working so much. Obviously, it's a frustration that builds throughout the film, but it read to me as if she was, understanding of the fact that he couldn't, like, that he had all this work that he had to, like, attend to because he is Santa Claus. But she still, that doesn't stop the fact that, like, the frustration is still there, that he can't always be there to, like, to help her out, and spend time with her as the baby is being delivered. And I do think that, like, I do think having the fear of, like, your husband not being there when you're delivering your baby is a big one. Like, I do think it is, like, a real one. And, like, even though obviously this is a fantastical version of it where it's, like, the wife of Santa Claus delivering a baby, it's like, I do think that there are people out there who could maybe relate to, maybe your wife, it goes into labor, you're not there for it, and suddenly you have to, like, rush to make sure, maybe you're at work, maybe you're out someplace, and you have to, like, rush to make sure that you're there when your wife is delivering the baby. So it's like, I don't think it's an unrealistic, fear of hers or, like, worry of hers throughout the movie, but that's just me.
I do want to put I want to add on because Phil's absolutely right. Given both Kat and I, our fathers both have versions of not being there when our mothers went into labor with us at the time. So yes, that's a very real thing to say. But also the fact I want to say that they're having a baby before they've ironed out all these things, especially the fact that Carol feels very isolated, that she can't see her family, especially now when she's having a freaking baby, that there's all this secrecy to it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That they have not worked on this
beforehand. The Secret of
beforehand.
Santa is something that I have a problem with, and we're going to get into that in a minute. I want to save that for a second, but I do want to interject with, maybe it's a me thing, because I'm very different than all of you in one aspect. Like, I cannot have children. I made that choice. I'm trans. I didn't want to have children simply because I have birth defects, and I didn't want to pass those on. And I was afraid, and I'm like, I can always adopt. So for me, being there at the moment of conception isn't as big a thing, but I get that that's a me thing. That is a me thing.
Mm-hmm.
You mind if I chime in as someone who's actually been a pregnant woman?
Yep, go ahead.
Yes.
Not that I wasn't interested in listening to all you talk about it, but
Yeah, we did kind of dominate the conversation there.
It's okay. I basically agree with what Phil and Doug have been saying. As someone who, again, was 9 months pregnant, due any day now, although I was lucky enough to have a scheduled day to have my baby due to reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember, how uncomfortable I was. I remember having morning sickness up until I gave birth. I remember, having to keep my emotions under control, my anxiety, my depression, everything. And keep in mind, I don't take medication for that. I don't know if I could have done that if I didn't have, like, my mom, my dad, my stepmom, my stepdad, all my siblings there to, like, help me through this entire process. They were all there the day that I gave birth to Remy, like, at the hospital. It was like a mini party at the hospital of them just waiting for me to give birth. So I was very fortunate in that I had this entire village to help me throughout the entire process. They brought me to and from ultrasound appointments, to doctor's appointments. They brought me to go get medicine, and if I needed new clothes and everything. Like, I had this whole support system the entire time. I now think of Carol, who isn't even in the same country that she's been living in, who is not allowed to really talk to her parents, or at least tell them the truth of where she is, what's going on, or anything. And the only real support system she has outside of Scott are these magical creatures that look like children. In fact, her doctor looks like he's 12 years old. So you can imagine, your first time trying to give birth to a baby, surrounded by, these beings who really don't understand your situation, who wouldn't understand your situation, who don't really know you outside of your status, trying to get the support you need. And on top of that, the one person you have available for the support, that's his busy season. And you have to acknowledge that, yes, he has to pay attention and get ready for Christmas because that's his big thing. But at the same time, you're like, this is my big thing. This is something that could theoretically kill me if something goes wrong. So I totally am on Carol's side about, feeling the way she does and, having these perceived selfish feelings of wanting to be the center of attention. Because again, childbirth is a scary thing. It's a lot safer nowadays, but that doesn't mean things can't go wrong. And in a case like that, especially with your first child, you need that support system, like, more than ever. Like, the only thing I don't like about this situation, that even when she does get that support system, when her parents come, when Scott's ex-wife and her family come, and she now has all that, stuff still goes wrong. And then that's where the movie starts to lose me, because yes, I know that it's Jack Frost causing a lot of these problems, which lead to their fight, but that's when it does get a little muddled, and it starts to feel forced and unnecessary. So that's my 2 cents from my perspective.
Okay, I don't want to undercut your experience, because obviously out of all of us, you're the only one who has given birth. Doug, I don't know yet. You might later.
We'll see.
But my experience is unique, again, because I'm trans, but also I went through a lot of my life and experiences being the only one around that I could talk to. So, like, it's all of our lived experiences are very different. So me seeing this film, it's like, yeah, it's nice to be surrounded by family, but my family, when it came time, they weren't there for me in this way. So it's like, I wish I can see where she's coming from, but at the same time, like, I had to go through it alone. So that's my 2 cents.
I will say, just on a humorous note, do you have to pick March, Scott? Like, of all the times to do it, do you have to do March? You couldn't have picked any other time to decide, yeah, let's have a baby. Like, it had to be March, eh?
Well, St. Patrick's Day, stuff happens.
Yeah,
Okay. So there is stuff that we can disagree and agree on in that, but I think something that we can all agree is kind of stupid, based on the first film, The Secret of Santa. Because in the first film, there is no secret of Santa. They do not keep his secret. They do not. They they're in Chicago. They show the entire Chicago PD that they're flying. People believe in Santa Claus. They show that Santa Claus is real. And yet somehow, in this film, they have to protect the secret of Santa. Now, in the second film, they protect the secret of the North Pole from the military. That's different to me because it seems like what they're saying is by telling people that you're Santa, the location of the North Pole is automatically revealed, and I don't get that, Kat.
No, I agree with the whole secrecy thing. It truly is stupid, because it's like, if you're gonna end the first film with him revealing himself and then them realizing, yes, he is the true Santa and stuff, you make it an open secret. And yeah, you don't exactly reveal where the North Pole is, but that's not the point. The point is to make people believe, because that's what gives legendary figures their powers and everything, and their status and all that, and all their magic. But yeah, like, even by the second movie, it's like everybody just developed amnesia and forgot about this. Like, the whole big conflict, at least between Charlie and Scott, is that he knows his dad is Santa, but he can't tell anybody about it. And it's like, why? Everyone in your neighborhood knows this secret. And now you're gonna have your little sister carry that secret too and go through the same pain. Like, why? Again, this is an open secret. And they once again try to maintain that secrecy by saying that Carol's parents can't know, but it's like, why does it matter? They're just two, bubkins, like, that nobody's probably gonna listen to or not believe. I mean, if everybody's still so gung-ho about Santa not existing, then why does it matter who knows? I mean, again, it's not like you're leaking secrets to the military. It's not like you have, like, a Mr. Crocker type figure out there who's, like, hell-bent on hunting down Santa. Just, like, yeah,
Santa
it's
got
so
parents.
stupid.
Santa got parents.
Yeah,
I keep thinking of this like that South Park episode with Mysterion, and how he reveals his power is that he can't die, but not just that, when he does die, nobody remembers him dying. Time just resets. So I feel like this is the same case. It's like explains every Christmas special ever, where it's like, oh, they revealed that Santa's real, and now they gotta keep the secret, and then suddenly everybody forgets. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, look, I kind of see what they were going for, because it's like, even with like what happened at the end of the first movie, you still want at least like a partial, like, to have like partially like secrecy there, both because of the North Pole and trying to keep that hidden, but also because like, Santa, like Santa Claus is like this, like, seemingly mythical being that like they want to keep like under wraps. So it's not like airtight. I do agree that like the secret of Santa thing was like, something just conjured up for the third movie for the sake of having this subplot with the in-laws happen. But like I can kind of see like what they were going for in that regard. But I will also agree in the fact that it's like, I don't think like that Carol's parents would have gone around like blabbing about it, and even if they did, I don't think that anyone would have believed them on the subject. But I can put it aside enough, because like there are enough moments of them in Canada per se, like that I got a chuckle out of, like when they just come in, they're like, "Welcome to Canada, eh?" Like I was like, I don't know why, but like that made me chuckle.
Why is everyone so small? Oh, it's Canada. Oh yeah, now we know.
So I'm Canadian.
What are you talking about?
I will say I find it really ironic that they push so hard to make them believe that this is Canada that they're in, because behind the scenes, canonically in real life, the first two Santa Claus movies, as well as the Santa Clauses, were all filmed in Canada. This is the only movie where they don't shoot the movie in Canada.
That's very funny.
California.
That's very funny.
I'm like, dude, it was right there. The joke was right there, and you ruined it, you bastards.
It's Canada. Doesn't feel like Canada.
Oh, God. Doug, do you have anything to add to that?
I'm setting you adrift.
I'm not your buddy, guy.
I'm not your
Not your
guy,
guy,
friend.
Yeah, you notice how they're not Canadians because they don't have their head flaps like in South Park.
Boy, our Canadian listeners are gonna love that.
Although, to be fair, you do have to pass through Canada to get to the North Pole.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair, I've been to Canada. It's wonderful. It's a very nice area. We went to Con Bravo a few times. It was a nice place to visit. I have several of my friends who are Canadian.
I want to go to Canada.
It is currently a better place to live than where I am. But even with that being said, some of the jokes are really funny here for Canada. Some of the jokes I don't like. And I think part of my problem with the second plot, we have to keep this a secret from your parents. I don't like her parents at all.
They can be hit or miss, admittedly. Like, yeah, there are some scenes where I think that like their delivery is like the scene where it's like, oh, you know, they're Canadian, like this is just how Canadians look, and there's just this awkward pause, and he's like, huh. Like that's like that can be funny like here and there and like dry ways.
That worked because it reminded me a lot of the Lilo and Stitch gag. It's like, well, how come you're so big? I'm Samoan.
Yeah,
like,
I'm Samoan.
It's like, oh yeah, yeah. Now we know. Those types of jokes worked, but then you have like them just saying nothing to each other and complaining, and the mom is judgmental, and the dad rushes in to a toy factory that he doesn't know how to operate and tries to take it over.
This is what happens when you have Curtis in charge instead of Bernard.
Yeah.
Oh god. So in part of this plot, so behind the scenes, David Krumholtz, who was the actor for Bernard, went to college. You know, stopped acting because he wanted to go to college. He is apparently in the Santa Clauses, but Bernard is unceremoniously removed from the film without being, like, it's not narrated how or when or why.
Yeah, not even mentioned.
And then, never even mentioned, and Curtis, once again played by Spencer Breslin from Cat in the Hat, is now head elf for no reason. And, like, he was fun in the last film, but he was an inventor. He's not head elf. And so he's the one in charge of keeping the secret, and he forgets all the time that they're supposed to be in Canada. And I'm just like, you're bad at this. These jokes aren't funny, Kat.
Oh god, like, I did not like Curtis in the second film, but he is insufferable in the third film. Like, you would think that, like, I get that elves don't technically age, or if they do, it's, like, very slow, but you would think, like, years of experience, you know, working under Bernard and everything, he would learn a bit from his mistakes, especially after the whole plastic Santa debacle. But, yeah, in this case, like, he sets up like, I don't want to say all of the conflict, but he just does it in such, like, an ignorant way. Like, when he casually mentions the escape clause around Jack Frost, like, he doesn't have to elaborate on what it is. In fact, he shouldn't have even said it to begin with. But Jack Frost, like, little to no effort, tricks him into spilling, like, what the clause is exactly, how it works, and what you need to do exactly to activate it. It's like, dude, why don't you just tell him where to stick the knife while you're at it? And then, even in the alternate universe where he's, like, working for Santa Frost, like, again, he's, like, a pushy salesman, and he's, like, totally serious, and, again, antagonistic. Like, he's just a miserable character to me. He just, like, exists for the sake of, A, telling bad jokes, B, being annoying, and C, setting up conflict for the plot. I can't stand him.
I can't stand Curtis. The parents are very hit or miss. Like, there are some parts in the end with the parents where he's like, oh, wait a second, that means this is the North Pole. And if this is the North Pole, that means you're Santa. And if that means you're Santa, I'm the godfather of Santa. Like, that was fun.
The wording is like, wait, so I'm the father-in-law for Father Christmas. I'm father-in-law Christmas.
Like, that was good, but, like, there's so many of these things that fall flat.
It's kind of ironic considering Alan Arkin was Jewish.
Doug, what do you think?
No, I completely agree. I feel I can't stand Curtis in this movie. I barely tolerated him in the second one. This was just, he's bad. He just basically exists to, clue Jack Frost in on the escape clause, which isn't much of a thing. It's like we're breaking from the whole tradition of the legal stuff, and basically, you basically have all these snow globes and one that can change time if he says this certain thing. It's like it's not a legal thing like it was in the last two movies. The fact that it's called a clause, there's no legal. I don't even. I thought the Carol's family is okay. I like Alan Arkin, but he's definitely given horrible material to work with. And yeah, the jokes in this are just so lazy.
I hate to say it, but not to stereotype or anything, but Carol's parents kind of come off as like the critical Jewish parents. Like, again, I know that's part of Alan Arkin's performance, but that's what it came off as to me, because it's like, they're being overly critical for no real reason. I mean, they see their daughter for the first time in God knows how long, and one of the first things they say is like a snarky comment about Scott's ex-wife being friends with her. It's like, keep the comment to yourself. Like, how rude are you?
I definitely
keep
agree.
Your comments in your pocket.
I definitely agree that it's rude. I will say, I don't mind it as a plot point, because it's from the way they talk about it, it seems like they haven't seen Carol, all that much in, the 4 years that she got married to Scott. So it's I can understand them being more than a little passive-aggressive about this stuff, because it's they, they want to see their daughter more often, but it's for reasons unbeknownst to them, they haven't been able to see her all that much, and now they're suddenly taken to Canada, which, I mean, let's face it,
Canada.
looks more than a little weird to them, because it's all these little people walking around, and it's and everything's going wrong. There's a whole lot of secrets that they're just learning about, and and some of their comments regarding Laura is really rude and stuff like that. They definitely they're but at the same time, I can understand why they are as skeptical about everything as they are.
No,
I think it needed more build up.
Yeah, I mean, I understand their reaction. I'm not saying that they're not acting like this for no reason. Again, they're separated from their daughter, and they're thrust into this weird situation, and they have no context for, why this is, or why they've been kept from this for so long. But at the same time, I just felt like some of their comments were just too mean, too snarky.
I can get that.
You have... Yeah, you haven't seen these people. Your daughter's, about to pop. You really shouldn't be causing her more stress than you should. And yet they're, they're griping on the whole, we haven't seen you in so long. Yeah, you're about to drop a baby, but you gotta validate our feelings in order for us to support you. It just comes off as just really overly mean to me.
Is there any behind the scenes reason why Charlie isn't in this movie more than he is?
Not that I found. I think more that the actor, he already got major focus in the first two movies, so I guess they wanted to shift that to a younger focus, hence his sister. Mm-hmm. But also I imagine he probably had his own schedule and everything, so while he was willing to show up in this, they didn't really have much for him to do. It was kind of the same with Bernard as well. It's but the actor for Bernard did want to try to show up in this and make it work. The problem was he had his own projects going on, and they just didn't write anything substantial enough for him to justify being in the movie. So,
yeah, you have college, you have growing up. It's hard being a child actor and doing all that sort of thing.
Yeah, I do like I do like the fact that these films take place over a such a wide period of time. The fact that, the first one's in the mid-90s, these two take place, 2 and 3 take place, much later down the road, and then obviously the Santa Clauses take place, when they do. So I do like how you get to see, these characters grow up and like and see like the passage of time with like how the experience of Santa Claus is like as the years go on. I That's kind of like one of the big things I like about the first movie is that like, you know, it's not just like, because they talk about how like, you know, when you get put into the Santa Claus, you know, any identity you had previously is overwritten by like, you know, you being Santa Claus. And when you think about it, that's a really like fucked up way to like look at it. It's like, oh, you forfeit your previous identity to be Santa. And over the course of the movie, you see him like gradually shifting to, you know, liking cookies a lot more, wearing the sweaters and shaping the appearance and all that stuff. So you see his personality like start to shift in that regard. But like what I like about it is that, you know, he's still Scott Calvin at the end of the day. It's like, it's not like Scott Calvin ceases to be and Santa Claus appears. You know, you kind of get this meld of like who the person was before and like who they are now that they're Santa. Like you kind of get like a mesh between the two of them. And like, I think that's a very like interesting mix of things. That's one of the things that like, cause I know with the Santa Claus, if I'm not mistaken, I think you do see like multiple different like of the previous Santa Clauses. So it's like, that's something I kind of like am interested to see when I eventually like watch that series, and like how being Santa melds with like who those characters are as people. And something you see a little bit of here with, you know, Jack Frost, where, you know, even though he becomes Santa Claus, it absolutely in no way like stops, you know, the person Jack Frost from like shining through in the role. You know, like who he is as a person influences how he is as Santa Claus, you know?
Yeah, I do agree with that in a sense. Again, it is so hard for me to not say anything about the series, knowing what I know. But like, one thing I do like is that they established in the first movie that Scott does not hate Christmas. Like, there are so many like films and stuff where they have a character who has to learn the meaning of Christmas, who starts off as a Grinch or a Scrooge or something and has to learn to appreciate the holidays and his family and yada yada. Scott doesn't really have that problem. His problem is that he's kind of a workaholic, but he's trying his best to make it work while raising his son, who he has trouble with connecting with, both due to the distance between them and, you know, his son preferring his new dad over him. So, like, that's the more conflict rather than, you know, Scott doesn't like Christmas. Yeah. And so it doesn't make him being chosen as Santa seem as outlandish, because again, they're not picking some guy who like hates the season. It's just he has been out of it for so long, he doesn't quite know how to connect with it anymore. And becoming Santa is what helps. And him having been a former CEO of a toy company especially helps. So, like, that's what I like about all this, is that it's just bringing out the best of Scott and making him Santa, because he technically already is. He just hasn't realized his full potential.
Yeah, I can agree with that. A couple things I want to mention and bring up. I do agree. I like the passage of time in this series. I like that the first film takes place over a year. I feel like, though, from the second film, the passage of time lessens, and the third film really doesn't introduce these new characters well. And they could have released like a flashback with the parents, showcase interaction with them. Like, instead of introducing them in a gag, introduce them as characters. I come from a big Italian family. Every Christmas, every Thanksgiving, every Christmas Eve, New Year's, we would have big parties. But you know what we didn't do? We didn't go and criticize each other. We had some family tensions because, again, trans, but a lot of the time the family gathering was about us coming together and being a unit. And part of what I don't like about the plot of the family coming over is that, one, there's barely any Neil, because Judge Reinhold is the best character in this film, best actor, and, like, they barely show anything with him. They have some really great moments, but it's all focused on the parents, and I'm just like, they barely introduce the parents. Yes, they should reduce some of the side characters' roles, but like they don't give enough for these characters. It feels more rushed than before, and it feels like less like two families coming together, and more like I've gone to somebody I don't know's wedding, and I have done that before. It's not fun.
Can I chime in?
Go
By
on.
all means.
Yeah. Honestly, I think all in all, the presentations of the family coming up and, interacting together is probably the most genuine thing about it. Because it's like, yeah, spending time with family in any, extended capacity, especially when you're merging two, units of family together or more, it gets chaotic. And people don't always agree. Like, honestly, like, for mine and my Cat and mine wedding, we were expecting to have, family bickering and, all sorts of things go wrong. We wound up having kind of the opposite happen, and like people were actually getting along a lot better than they usually would. And, being friendly to each other, not just civil. But yeah, like I said, family is chaotic at any capacity, and yeah, when you put them together in this situation, it's going to be a powder keg. Something is gonna happen. It's gonna get messy.
Yes, and I agree with that.
Yeah, someone who's a child of divorce, I've witnessed firsthand what happens when certain people mix. So, yeah, it's like I agree this could have gone a lot worse. For Scott and Carol having her parents there and stuff. But again, we know like the whole catalyst for this is Jack Frost causing these problems. So theoretically, they could have worked through their issues and stuff. I just wish we had a scene that showed the parents having maybe like an emotional moment, a tender moment, like a one-on-one conversation saying I'm sorry to be this way, but I miss my daughter and I feel like you took her away from me and yada yada. Like some sort of like moment like we had in the second movie, just to convey that these parents aren't just your stereotypical like critical overbearing parents. They're people with feelings who miss their daughter, who don't understand why she was taken away like this, and are right to suspect that maybe she's being trapped by the mob or something, or being held hostage. So
yeah, I will
like,
I will say the like this is why I still say the second one's probably still the best one, even if the third one like I still prefer like from a personal enjoyment perspective, because it's like I think the second one is the right balance of like the hard and down to earth nature of the first movie while having the ludicrousness of this movie. I do think there could have been like some tender moments like here and there that would have
endeared us to the parents a little more.
Yeah, exactly. And I do agree that like there should be more of that, but like I also don't really find major fault in the way that they act, personally speaking. What were you gonna say, Zach?
I feel like they don't feel like characters. There's no heart to this film, and it's like, yeah, there's a lot of fun and slapstick, and the final portion of this film is laugh out loud funny, but we have to deal with so much awkward to get there. And it's like, yeah, family, I agree, is a powder keg. Bad things can happen. We've all seen it. We've all seen, a family member or a family gathering go wrong and whatnot. But it shouldn't be the entire focus of the entire film, you know what I'm saying? And the fact that we never get any tender moments, we never get anything aside from like a little bit near the end where he's like, father-in-law Christmas. He doesn't ever say he's sorry for being overbearing. It's just, there's never a moment where he steps down from his high horse. And the same thing with the mother. Like, it just feels like they're on the same wavelength throughout the film, not changing, not doing anything. And that's what I don't like. It doesn't work as a comedy because I don't think a large portion of these two-thirds of this film is funny. And it takes so long to get to the third that I like, but I have problems with it. So it's just like, I dislike so much of this film. I get why you enjoy. I get why you defend a large portion of like the setup and whatnot. I get why Kat relates to certain things, but for me, it just feels like being trapped at a family gathering that I don't want to be at, where it's repeated on a loop of the same interactions. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. I just don't think I take as big of an issue with like some of the moving parts, to the point where it's like, while there are awkward moments that like don't really land for me with the with Carol's parents, or with like some of the characters, like there are also moments that like do work for me, so it's kind of like, you know, a mixed bag in that regard. But one thing that isn't a mixed bag for me, and like I guess this is as good of a segue as any to finally bring him up, you know, I think the thing that consistently like makes me just thoroughly enjoy this movie is Martin Short as Jack Frost, who is one of my favorite additions to the Santa Claus movies.
I both love and hate him. Now hear me out. I normally am not a big fan of Martin Short, because in everything I've seen him in, he's always hamming it up, and even in stuff like Frankenweenie and whatnot, he fell out of place. But then I saw Inner Space, and he was good in Inner Space. If you haven't seen it, it's an 80s movie about someone shrinking down and going inside Martin Short and like talking to him on the inside. It is funny. It takes a while to get going, but it's really funny. And I definitely think it's worth it because he doesn't fully overact. Here is the opposite for me, because on one hand, I love that he was directed to act like himself, but Jack Frost on crack. Like, he is all over the place, mugging, like, chewing the scenery. He's a lot of fun.
I'll forever know him.
Crack on his frosted tips.
I'll forever know
frosted.
I'll forever know him for I'll forever know him for his role in Madagascar 3 as the seal.
Oh god. Like, there are things that I like when he's like, I invented chill. Like, you know, his reactions are really good, and seeing him go over the top and mug, great. But in the beginning, there's some parts of the film where he comes across as creepy, and I don't like it. For example, when he starts saying like chestnuts roasting over an open fire, he has the mother sing Jack Frost nipping at your nose several times, and it seems like he gets a certain reaction from it that's very not PG. Like,
that's so creepy.
To be fair,
he's so creepy.
To be fair, he's meant to be a creep though. Like, he's not meant to be a like likable guy at this point.
I do understand, but it's weird. And like, there's points where he's trying to sound sincere to Santa, where he's just like, I want another chance. But because he's been directed to play it up, it doesn't sound sincere to me. And I get it. He's evil. He's not going to actually change. But you can hide it. To me, Martin Short works in the last third of the film, where he's allowed to just go over the top and do whatever the hell he wants, and it's fun. But the lead up is not good. And we're going to get into the escape clause in a second, but like, I don't know, Kat, what do you think of Martin Short in this film?
Do you want the short list or the long?
Yes.
The long.
God. Nah, like I said, I've seen Martin Short in a number of things. And to be fair, I didn't hate him in everything. Like, I do find his voice grating. He's one of those people that he kind of shouts without meaning to. That's just how he speaks. So there are times where it's become rather grating for me. I think the point where I realized I just hated him as an actor was when he voiced Ben in Treasure Planet. Like, that to me is easily one of the worst roles he's ever done, by virtue of just how absolutely annoying that character is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's part of what really made me hate him. But Yeah, like other stuff. Again, I try to like look at other stuff he's done. Like he was in an episode of How I Met Your Mother, which I actually thought was pretty funny. Um, and yeah, they're like roles where like he's more downplayed and stuff. But I don't know what it is about him that he just, especially when he's in roles where he plays himself, he just is like hamming it up, chewing the scenery. He's being like loud and obnoxious, and it just rubs me the wrong way. And trust me, I've tried giving him a chance, and I've tried watching him. I tried watching him on Saturday Night Live, which was okay, but no, I just can't stand him. And here it feels like as Jack Frost, given he's allowed to portray himself, that just makes him even more insufferable because he's basically just this, attention-seeking narcissist that is doing whatever the hell he can to like put the spotlight on himself. I mean, heck, we find out that Jack Frost has a body count, that he is causing global warming just so people will notice him, just so people will say he is pretty. Like,
not
dear
only
God.
that, not
Notice
only
me,
that.
senpai.
Okay, let's talk about this for a second really quick. Okay, he froze a volcano in Hawaii, and later we learned that he never unfreezes, so the volcano is still frozen until the end of the film.
He mentions to Lucy that, oh, there are kids who are begging me to freeze their parents. I'm like, how many parents have you frozen to death? Like,
how many people have you killed?
Exactly.
I don't know. I kind of think that adds to his like little. I think that adds to his, like the like humor to him is just like how like when you really think about it, like God, like this guy, like how does anyone let this guy just like walk around scot-free? And like that can be perceived as a criticism, to be fair. Like you can definitely look at like him causing all these problems, and the other character, you're asking the other characters, like, come on, this is Jack Frost. Why aren't you like, why aren't you like suspecting immediately that like he's running amok? But at the same time, I think that kind of adds to the humor of like everyone just being swept up in their own troubles and own worries. That like this guy is
disagree.
That like this guy is just able to like run around and like and cause havoc.
Yeah, one of my major problems with this film, well, actually, there's two things. It revolves around Jack Frost in general. One, the fact that they let him get away with everything. But two, that nobody knows who the hell Jack Frost is. I'm sorry, but when I was a kid, I knew who the hell Jack Frost was. We've had several movies. Like, it's not even just like that. In Frosty the Snowman, we had Jack Frost mentions. Like, I mean, Jack Frost is a legendary figure.
I mean, I'm gonna
more as a concept than an actual, autonomous figure.
I guess I'm gonna strengthen the movie's case here because I'll be real. Until this movie came out, I didn't know who Jack Frost was.
You've never seen Rise of the Guardians? I know this came out. I know this came out before Rise of the Guardians.
This came out,
but the books, the Guardians of Childhood came out first.
Like, this came out before Rise of the Guardians. So, like, by the time Rise of the Guardians came out, I knew vaguely who Jack Frost was. But because of this movie, I thought, oh, he was a mischievous, like, villain character. And then Rise of the Guardians comes out, and, like, obviously that has, like, a polar opposite take. But even that one is, like, even that film is predicated on, like, children nowadays just not knowing who Jack Frost is and not believing in Jack Frost. So, like, I think that these two films have like a very like weirdly enough, they have like a very similar starting point of like Jack Frost isn't remembered or believed in like nowadays.
Yes.
And they take it in two very different directions essentially.
The best way I can say to think about it is the Rankin Bass specials with Jack Frost, because he is mischievous. He is a mischievous figure. But he's always supposed to be this character who, like, the kids admire. And maybe it's because I'm old school and I watched the Rankin Bass stuff that I knew who Jack Frost was. But he's an older figure than a lot of these other ones. In the sense that, like, the legend of Santa goes back very, very far. But if you think about it, like, Jack Frost has been talked about for a very long time. So that kind of... It was weird for me, as someone my age... in like 35 to be like, people don't know Jack Frost. I don't know, Doug.
So I definitely want to go into Martin Short and Jack Frost. I do just want to start off by saying that a lot of the, villains in this movie have to be so much worse than they should be in order to make Scott more likable. And because he is the protagonist, the protagonist. Anyway, as far as Martin Short, I think he was the right call for this. Yeah, I have a very dislike relationship with Martin Short, and I don't have as much experience with, seeing him and stuff. But I remember he used to do like the primetime Glick. I seen him on like Conan O'Brien's podcasts, and I hear he's really good in Only Murders in the Building. It just seems to me like he's at his funniest when he's, a ball buster, when, he's just getting on your nerves and, being that son of a bitch you just want to slap across the face. Mm-hmm. With him, I feel like there's sort of this dichotomy of both having him have too much to do in this while simultaneously not having enough to do. Like they really could have taken it further. It's especially harmed by the fact that, like we said, there's so much else going on in this movie that he's kind of undercut and underutilized. Although when it comes to like certain jokes and stuff, it's like, much like how Kat was saying earlier about, how these films make Coco sound so good. It's like, if I hear him describing the fluidness, the texture, the smell of this cocoa, I want to punch him in the face. It's like, enough already.
At the same time, I think that makes for an effective villain. And like, I think the big reason why I really get a kick out of Jack Frost in this movie is because, like, I do think that they toe the line of, like, of him being just someone who you want to see, like, slapped across the face, which makes the third act, like, really satisfying by the time it's over. But I think Martin Short brings, like, a good charisma to him that, like, that sells that character for me. To the point where it's like, even when he's like, causing mischief and like, and setting things like setting things amok, it's like, I just like seeing him like, being that little shit. It's like, oh, I can't wait for him to get that comeuppance by the end. And even when the film,
I enjoy seeing him being a little shit. I don't like I don't like the reason behind it. Like, oh, I want to be Santa Claus because you get all the Coca-Cola ads and all I get is citrus and runny noses. And I'm just like, dude, you have so much merchandise. I don't get it. I personally don't get it.
I don't know. Like, again, like, I never saw anything for Jack Frost when I was a kid. So it's like, maybe this is just a 2000s thing because it's like, again, if you ask, like, anyone, like, if I were to ask anyone, like, in person, like, as a kid in the 2000s, like, hey, who's Jack Frost? Like, I'm sure there'd be, like, at least, like, more than a few, like, children or teens, like, my age, like, who'd be like, oh, yeah, who? Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's, I don't know, like...
What about the films? What about the horror film Jack Frost? Or the supposedly children's film, but it's also a horror film Jack Frost?
If I may... about those.
There was a Jack Frost horror film?
Yes.
You didn't know this?
I didn't know that.
Oh my god.
There are two films about killer snowmen. One's supposed to be a childhood classic. One, supposedly.
So I think that's also the big thing of Jack Frost, because I was gonna go into this a little more, is that Jack Frost is and always has been more of a concept than something you put a face to. It's like even as a kid, like I never really, if I'd hear Jack Frost, it's like I kind of know, oh, we're talking about is all this bitter cold and ice and stuff that we're dealing with, and it's not until like they start making the the snowman movie that, you know, you even put some sort of face to it, and even then it's a snowman. Or you have the, you know, Rankin Bass film, I guess, but I didn't really watch that. So yeah, really, I guess I'm kind of with Phil in that, you know, it's not really until this movie came out that you really see Jack Frost as more of a humanized form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like
I mean,
I had
agree
seen
he's more of a concept than anything. I can definitely agree with that.
because I had seen the like the Michael Keaton Jack Frost movie, but like I didn't like pin that as being like Jack Frost, you know, like when because I was really young when I had seen that for the first time, so I didn't like. Yeah, it played more.
Your parents
with, like,
let you
the
watch
concept
horror
of...
films that young?
Stop.
If I may interject, I have 3 things to say. 1.
Okay, go on.
Phil.
Go on.
1. Phil, you're a fetus. I mean that in the nicest way possible. 2. I speak as someone who actually has seen all the Jack Frost stuff. Like, believe it or not, this is like the 3rd plot of Jack Frost being pissed off that somebody else is getting more attention than him. Like I said, they did it in this movie. They did it in Rise of the Guardians. They did it in the Frosty the Snowman movie. That's the same plot done over and over. The only time it ever differentiates was, again, another Rankin Bass film, which featured strictly Jack Frost. But in this case, it actually humanizes him. It shows him falling in love with a human girl. It shows him becoming human and doing what he can to basically stay human and be with her. It shows that he's actually like a descendant of Father Winter, hence where his powers come from. There's a whole lore behind it and everything. So Jack Frost is more than just like a concept. Like, he does have like his own story, his own background. And yes, he's often shown as being impish and mischievous, and yes, even downright bitter and like hostile, because again, he's overlooked in favor of other holiday characters. But that doesn't, you know, negate the fact that he is like a mystical entity in and of himself. So that whole lore is there. It's just, you kind of have to like put that aside when watching this movie, because again, they give no humanistic qualities to this version of Jack Frost. So it's really hard to like sympathize with him. It's like, yeah, I get it, you're overlooked, but like, dude, you have the powers of a winter god. What the hell are you complaining about exactly?
What I will say is, I think in the Jack Frost specials and Rise of the Guardians, they at least do a good job to explain why he wants to reach out with people, why he thinks his mischief is important. Not in here.
Yeah, again, they could have made him more compelling, you know, again, show how, you know, he lives a lonely life or something, or he just wants to be able to, like, play with children, but they obviously either can't see him, or they, you know, are afraid of him or something. They could have, like, made him a sort of complex character, which Jack Frost is, because he's simultaneously both a character that brings joy, but also the harshness of winter. And they just don't do that here. They just play him as like a total like self-absorbed narcissist that lives to cause pain and misery to others. And it's just, that adds to just why I don't like the portrayal of this character. Because again, like, I don't expect someone like Martin Short to be able to like showcase that complexity. Like, if he was playing someone like Puck from A Midsummer's Night Dream, he would nail that role, no doubt. But in this, it's just, again, knowing the background that I know, it just feels like they're doing the character a big disservice. And the third thing I wanted to mention, there were other actors that were considered for the role of Jack Frost before Martin Short, and some of these choices I kind of find hilarious. So the first choice was actually Jim Carrey, which I could totally see in this role. I could see him doing like his Riddler shtick and just hamming this up. They didn't go with him though. Right. But they didn't go with him because he ultimately was too tall. Because, I mean, he's like half a foot taller than Tim Allen. It just would have looked weird. But the other actors were considered. Again, I question some of these choices, but some I theoretically would want to see how they would portray him. You have Adam Sandler, Ben Stiller, Paul Rubens, Gilbert Godfrey, and Steve Martin.
Okay.
And like,
okay.
Like a lot of like comedic actors is the thing. So it's like, and it kind of goes into the point. I want to let you finish there, but it kind of goes into the point of like, Jack Frost could have been a very like nuanced character, but at the same time, and like maybe I'm underselling these movies, but like I don't really go into like a Tim Allen Santa Claus movie like really like looking for like a nuanced like kind of character, to be fair. So I think for like the kind of tone that this movie is going for, I feel like Martin Short delivers like just the right performance of like what he needs to do. And like considering that like like hearing all those actors that like were considered for the role, it feels to me like the character would have been like this whether it was Martin Short in the role or not. And I feel like for the role presented, Martin Short does a really like good job, at least to me. So like I don't know, I still enjoy his character like for what he is to the narrative.
I would have loved to see Ben Stiller, because I love Zoolander, and just imagining that.
I could absolutely see Ben Stiller in this role.
Just him doing the stare and everything.
Especially because Ben Stiller, I feel like in most of his roles plays the straight man. Like he's always like the protagonist who has to like the outlandish characters, the people like interacting with him. Whereas Zoolander was one of the few times where he was allowed to like be the outlandish one himself. So like for him to be in this role would have been like.
What about Mystery Men? Mystery Men?
I haven't seen Mystery Men.
True.
Yeah.
Well, there's also like the movies where he's not the main character, where he has either a supporting role or he's got a big cameo, where usually he becomes some big character, like think Happy Gilmore.
Yeah, I'm also thinking of like roles like in Night at the Museum or Meet the Parents, like like that's typically when I think of Ben Stiller, like that's the kind of role I typically like picture him in, like kind of like being the straight man to like all the outlandish characters around him.
Think Tropic Thunder.
Tropic Thunder. I don't like Tropic Thunder, but he was pretty out there in Tropic Thunder. All right.
Who left
before
the
we
fridge
get on to
open?
the who left the fridge open? God. Okay, before we get to the escape clause, there's one thing I want to mention before I start ranting again. Because something that Eliza has shown me, and I want to show all of you, and some of my audience who follow Linkara may already know this, but I recently have been shown by Eliza this group called, I believe it's Eclipse 6. They do mashups of different musicals and holiday specials. And I want you to go out and see Hameldolf, which is a mashup of Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Hamilton, The Greatest Snowman, which is Frosty and the Greatest Showman, and Mean, which is Wicked and the Grinch, and somehow it works.
Oh Lord.
That reminds me of that reminds me of the parody musical Twisted, which is a mix up of it's the concept of Wicked but done with Disney's Aladdin, where Jafar is the good guy.
That play.
It's all your fault, Jafar.
It's kind of like that because like they do Loathing, but it's just like I just gotta say I hate that song. Like every little bit, however small, it goes into show how he changes it. It kind of really works for some reason. It's great. So I wanted to give you something good to watch because we're going to talk about the escape clause. We are an hour and 40-ish minutes into this, and we haven't mentioned the escape clause, which is supposedly the title of this film.
We've spent about as much time on the escape clause as the escape clause.
Like, okay, there's two problems with the escape clause. One, that they only spend 10 minutes in the alternate universe, and they take like 2/3 of the movie to get there. But two, it retcons all the other films. All right. Let me just lay this out for you. Santa Claus 1, you put on the suit, you're the Santa. Santa Claus 2, you have to get married to Mrs. Claus. Okay, those make sense, legally binding. Third film. By the way, there's a snow globe. There's a snow globe that all the Santa Clauses have. And if you take your snow globe and say, I wish I'd never been Santa before, somehow you undo it. So the clauses aren't binding anymore.
To be fair, to give a little correction, it's not a single snow globe that every Santa has. It's more like every Santa's own personal snow globe.
Yeah, but it's that's what I meant. It's like every Santa has their own individual snow globe, and if you do that, you can go back in time. But it's still kind of stupid because it retcons the first two films, and like, shouldn't he have been able to do that? Maybe they didn't tell him until afterwards, but like, why now have this out? And he doesn't even want it, and he just randomly says the words and is forced to by Jack Frost, and somehow that works, and it makes no goddamn sense, Kat.
Yeah, this whole existence of the escape clause basically negates everything from the first two movies, because it's like, wait, he had this choice this whole time to just not be Santa. All he had to do was wish on a snow globe, and boom, he goes back in time and just doesn't put on the suit. It's been that easy the whole time. Are you kidding me?
To be fair, I like, to be fair, like, with it not being brought up in the first movie at all, and this is me kind of connecting the dots myself. I'm not going to give the film credit for this, but like, with them not bringing it up at all in the first movie, but like, he knows what it is by the start of the third movie, it kind of gives me the picture that like, maybe they like didn't tell him for that first year to like, you know, see how he did in the role. And then after, like, you know, Christmas of that year had gone by, they told him, if at any point, you know, you do not want to be Santa anymore, you can use this to like, to alter your fate. And like, but by that point, he didn't want it because he wanted to be Santa Claus by the end of that first movie. So it's like, and again, that's me putting the pieces together, but like, I don't have a hard time like necessarily like gelling with the concept of the escape clause, you know, in that regard, you know?
They basically wait till he develops Stockholm Syndrome, and then they tell him about it.
Yeah, and I want to be clear, because first of all, Stockholm Syndrome has been another thing that's been rescinded by the original person who brought it up. It has not been proven to exist. Stockholm Syndrome was observed by people who were talking for the victims, and it just behavior they observed being nicer to their captives than the LAPD and stuff like that. So
you hear
like,
that? You hear that? All the people that make hit pieces on Beauty and the Beast, you can stop using that argument.
Exactly.
Yeah, like I'm just saying this right now. Stockholm Syndrome has not been truly proven to exist. And I feel like it is a very misogynistic way to put it, especially since it's always directed towards women who are better treated by, you know, the people than those coming in to save them. So I'm just saying that. But second of all, oh God, just what was I saying before this? Before
the
Stockholm
escape
Syndrome?
the escape clause, stupid.
Okay, the escape clause is stupid to me because he was forced into this role. They gave him a year, yes. They gave him time to decide, but they guilted him into the role, just like he guilted Mrs. Claus into the role. If there was an out, they could have said, hey, why don't you take the mantle for a bit? But there is always an out. It doesn't add up to me.
No, I get it. It's just like, I can, with me, when it comes to like retcons like this, where it's like, it has the potential to like poke holes in the previous films. To me, and this is just my rationale when it comes to like plot holes in that regard, it's like, if there is enough connective tissue to where I'm like, okay, I can put the pieces in my head and like, you know, it's like, it's not really like, you know, the film should have addressed it, but if I can put the pieces in my head, like, in that regard, I can ignore it. Or it's like, if it's something that's, like, so damaging to the plot where it's like, it just doesn't make sense, it's like, that that's where plot holes in that regard like kind of lose me. But for this one, it's like, yeah, I could see it being an issue, but like there's enough there where I'm like, I can swiftly just like put it to one side.
All right, just to clarify something, just to make sure, because I have been fought on this before, and I just want to say this really quickly. Stockholm Syndrome is a proposed condition. It has never officially entered the lexicon to explain why hostages occasionally develop a psychological bond with their captors. Named after an attempted bank robbery in 1973 in Stockholm, Sweden, in which 4 people were held hostage but later refused to testify against the robbers. However, there is the authoritative guide for diagnosis of psychiatric conditions used in the United States has never included this, and due to the lack of any academic study of the condition and an increasing body of evidence leading to doubt about the legitimacy of this condition, especially since it's usually directed towards women. So I do understand some people believe in this. I'm just saying the body of evidence does not point to it.
That incident.
You just spent more time talking about Stockholm Syndrome than the movie talked about the escape clause.
I didn't want to say anything, but we really did. I will say real quick, that incident kind of reminds me of the movie John Q. With I believe it was Denzel Washington. But that's off topic.
I'm just saying, like, the escape clause is barely a thing in the film. They're only in this alternate universe where he never was Santa Claus for 10 minutes. And when you have an alternate universe, you'd think they'd build up to this. This could have been a premise for an entire film if they had the other 2 plots to the wayside. Like, build to this, have something where he finally breaks and he wishes, and it feels like a cross between Back to the Future with the evil Biff Tannen, and then have that with, you know, the Timmy Turner episode where he wishes he was never born.
Or, you know, just It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, It's a Wonderful Life. Or some, like, Scrooged and stuff like that. A Christmas Carol. I'm sorry, but this film
It's a Wonderful Life because that's the whole thing that started the whole I wish I was never born thing.
There's a lot of films that do this, but yes.
Yeah, they all copied
It's a Wonderful Life. They're all copying that movie. Trust me.
I will say to head into the third act, because it's the last big thing we got to talk about. Even though, like, yeah, they probably could have spent more time in this, like, alternate universe. I think probably the reason why they didn't do that was because they didn't want to have us be with these these versions of the characters who are, like, completely alien to us for too long, especially when we already had, like, you know, several character arcs spinning with Carol and her parents and with Lucy and with Laura and Neil. So it's like, I think they just didn't want us to, like, you know, spend too much time with versions of the characters that, like, didn't like that we didn't know, especially, like, this late into the movie. I think that the alternate timeline was more about the damage that Jack Frost himself was doing to Christmas and to the concept of Christmas. And to be fair, like, I think that's probably my favorite part of the movie is seeing the capitalist hellscape that he's creating with the Christmas brand. I think that was, like, that's probably my favorite part of the third act, is, like, seeing him completely contort the concept of Christmas, and, like, you know, you gotta pay to be on the nice list and all that stuff. So I get a big kick out of, like, seeing that.
I enjoy that. I will say, though, had this not been bookended by this being a story from Carol relieving any of the tension this could have had, I would have been invested in it. It is interesting to see this alternate timeline, but it's 10 minutes. We know it's not gonna stick. And, like, there's so much of this film that is not involved in this. And you're like, well, they want to invest in the other plots. Well, why not invest in a plot? You have three plots going at the same time.
Well, to be fair, you say it's not, like, we know it's not going to stick. But, like, even if we didn't have, like, that book ending, it's like it's a Christmas, like, it's a Disney Christmas movie. Like, obviously, like, it's not gonna end with Jack Frost winning and this alternate timeline being like the thing that like closes out the trilogy. So it's like, I don't know. I don't think it's a big problem that's like the, oh well, is how's Scott gonna get out of this one? It's like, we know he's gonna get out of it because he's, it's
Disney
a
doesn't have the
movie.
balls.
Hey, they did in DuckTales. Where they actually, did that whole thing with the creature that we cannot name. Fair reminder that unfortunately they named the creature in DuckTales, but according to Eliza, who is Hadanose, you should not name the creature. So.
No problem. But, no, I'll admit it's interesting that we see Jack Frost as Santa Frost actually, like, totally throw the whole concept of, like, the Santa secret out the window, and B, just totally markets the North Pole as, like, a tourist trap destination. Like, first of all, I question how planes can get up there. Because I don't know if you've noticed, like, lately how many planes have had issues, like, landing and stuff on regular dirt. I can't imagine how they're able to land up on a place that's purely ice. But that aside, the fact that, like, he totally, like, makes, like, his own sort of Disney World type thing, which, yes, Disney, we get the reference. But he turns himself into, like, a pop star, and he's ripping off Frank Sinatra and everything. I'm like, wow.
That hurt. That hurt really, really big. Like, I'm going to say this right now. I enjoy Martin Short when he's Santa Frost, but Santa Frost is terrifying. Forget Robo Santa. Santa Frost terrifies me.
But yeah,
when he hands it up.
But again, like that's why I like that. That's why I enjoy seeing it, because it's like to see like how contorted and twisted like Christmas becomes in this timeline. I really like get a kick out of that. I will say. And this isn't like a big issue with the movie or anything, but it's like, Jack, do you really not think to change the passcode on like on the Red Bull or the Red Deer thing to like go to the snow globe room? Because it's like you knew Scott was gonna catch up with you eventually.
Look, I was gonna do it, but then I decided to get jazz hands, Doug?
You're too busy making them dollar bills.
Alright, so first off, to say, this movie is such a send-up of It's a Wonderful Life that the two films basically both have the what if I was never born in the last third of the movie and barely dedicate enough time to it to really make it worth it.
Although It's a Wonderful Life actually sets it up well enough that we care.
Yes, that is true. At least they have the setup there. It takes for goddamn ever, but it's enough where you're actually invested in the film enough. This it's like you spend so much goddamn time of nothing. You could have filled that with Jack Frost doing more. You could have spent a little less on the family arguing, whatever, but point is, we get to this point and it's like we don't care. And then, the escape clause is built on such a flimsy, forced idea. And, to even get us into it, it's just like, he has to say, I wish I wasn't Santa Claus. But it's like, even when he says it, I don't really believe it. So I feel like they should have had a little more to it then. So anyway, now we're in the alternate timeline, which is like blah 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 blah. The narrator of our film isn't even in it, and she's like mentioned for a second. I feel like we could have done so much more with this. It's like, maybe a little more with the night that he becomes Santa. Maybe a little more with him, Scott going around the world without him as Santa, maybe he has to, try a little harder to, reconnect with everybody. And, in the event that he isn't able to become Santa Claus, maybe at least, repair his relationships. this should have been more of a time for Santa Frost to shine, and they only really have him in the one thing, and then he's very easily done away with, just because he didn't consider to maybe change the password or passcode sequence on the vending machines or anything like that. So it just works. He's just done away with like that.
Also,
It's
does
way
he
too
lose his
easy.
Jack Frost powers when he becomes Santa? Because, like, it felt like he could have easily solved the whole thing going back in time again by just freezing Scott where he was so he could get the code again. But no, he just lightly struggles against him and just watches things happen the way they do. It's like, dude, you have ice breath. Like, use it. Or do you lose it once you become Santa? It's never really clear on that.
They should have clarified that, but I do think he probably does lose it, just because, like, there probably isn't overlap between, like, the powers of, like, one of the figures and another, so he probably did lose the powers.
But if that's the case, then who the hell is bringing in Winter? Like,
yeah,
no
true
one.
enough.
I'm just saying that this raises more questions.
It's like Emperor Palpatine.
That
He
just
got
raises
exactly
further
what
questions.
he wanted. He thinks he beat the rebels, so the Empire gets all complacent, and then the rebellion goes and blows up the Death Star.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I think the biggest injustice with the whole, alternate universe thing is that we never really see Carol in this. Like, she's mentioned offhand, but all we know is that she moved somewhere else and is leading another life. We never see that life. We never see how she is in this alternate universe where she never met Scott. Because, I mean, first of all, the film starts with her narration. So this should be from her point of view. And yet, she's not even in a good chunk of the movie once we get to the alternate universe. And you think that would be important because the big catalyst for Scott even saying the line that he doesn't want to be Santa is because he ruins her Christmas and her get-together with her parents, and it makes her regret ever marrying him. Like, that is a big moment where, like, she is actually voicing her regret over her life choices. Like, she's regretting marrying Scott. She's regretting having this child. Like, that is traumatic, heavy stuff right there.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
sorry to interrupt. I was just gonna say, like, I think with how much we had set up Carol's arc, it's like, I think to have her, like, the alternate universe version of her, at least in the North Pole section, like, would have done good to, like, show, like, to show that even in this alternate universe, like, maybe, like, she and Scott could, like, reconcile in some way in that alternate universe, to show that, like, even through hard times, like, these two were meant to be together,
Right, because I feel like that would have added more credence to, like, their relationship and why they got together and fell in love so fast. But they just don't show any of that. It's just, like, because I know, like, in the original, Wonderful Life, they kind of do the stereotype of, oh, they show George Bailey's wife, if he never married her, she ended up being an old maid who just, runs a library. Like, I get they didn't want to go that route, but they were clear in the second movie showing that, she was a stern, no-nonsense woman to the point where she was kind of, like, almost vilified by both her students and fellow teachers. Like, they didn't really want much to do with her. She was shown as having a dim view of Christmas, as always being alone. They could have expanded upon that and, kind of make you remember that, oh yeah, her life actually wasn't all that great before she met Scott. So, but they don't do any of that, and it's just aggravating.
Otherwise, how did you know about the parts you weren't there for?
Exactly.
Now, we've been talking for almost 2 hours, so I'm going to bring it to one final point. We could probably talk about this for another 2 hours, but we don't have time.
Yep.
This is like this is double the length of the Santa Claus 2 episode from 2 years back.
Jesus. Like, partially because I got off work. I'm glad I got to eat dinner before this, but I've been working all day, and I'm finally back to work, which is good. But, like, I would want to talk more about this, but there's so much. The main thing that really stuck out to me, outside of all of this, outside of the plot and the problems and whatnot, I do not like the effect work in this film. And I think that's what really sticks out to me the most. Because if you watch the first film, they put so much effort into the North Pole set. They put so much effort into all of the costumes in the sets. The second film, you can start to see the CG a little bit, and there are some parts that haven't aged well, but at the very least, they tried. And while, the first film has some of the CGI with the chimney is not great, it still tries. I don't think they try here. And the biggest problem that I have is the goddamn fireplace that looks like Tim Allen's face opening up and being
that's
horrifying.
funny though. That's funny though.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Funny.
Like I don't know. I like that bit. And I'm sorry. I want to let you finish your point, but I'm sorry. Having only just seen the first movie in full for the first time, just like last week, I will say the CGI in that movie is pretty noticeably bad. Like, not even just the chimney, but every time the reindeers fly off, it looks so bad. Like,
yeah, but if you look at the CGI when they're coming with the reindeer in the third film, comparatively, and the opening scenes with the North Pole, it looks so fake compared to at least the first film. I felt they were trying. I felt like they were trying to give this illusion. And this is a film in 94 versus a film in 2006, where you could arguably say that the 2006 film looks worse.
I don't know. I don't know if I can go that far. Like, I don't think any of these movies are visual spectacles, to be fair, but it's I think all of them have their own pros and cons. I'm not gonna say the CG in this movie looks great or amazing or anything, but it's I still think the set design has its fair share of work put into it. I still think they did try. I think to say they didn't try is maybe a little too mean. I think I like how ridiculous Jack Frost looks. I like the the way that all the characters, all the figures appear. I don't know. I still think that the film looks decent, at the very least, at the very least, a step above a mid-2000s Disney Channel movie. You know what I'm saying?
What do you think, Doug?
I think this was. Doug? We're in the midst of the era of straight to video sequels. This movie was intended to be a direct-to-video movie that got pushed into a cinematic release, a theatrical release. I also want to say I do not think the way I do not like how we resolve the Jack Frost plot in the end. It's such a they have to rely on a Deus Ex Machina because the guy is just a sociopath that proves he has no remorse whatsoever, and all it takes is for him to be hugged by somebody with Lucy to get him to
and I will say
change.
that I will say that in the sense of I've defended Jack Frost mainly because I think that he works as that little shit who you just want to see taken down. I will say that if they were gonna go with the hug angle where it's giving him this warm hug, defrosts his heart and makes him and it makes him a lot warmer. It's I do feel if they're gonna go with that angle, then yeah, you probably should have done a little more to humanize him a little bit. But I don't know. It's a Christmas movie. I can at the very least
it worked better in Santa Claus is Coming to Town. I'm just saying because they at least show him how to change. You know what I'm saying?
No, I get what you're saying.
Believe it or not, this isn't the first time they had Jack Frost do a change of heart like this. The same thing happens again in the Frosty movie, because again, Jack Frost is a little shit and basically the big antagonist throughout the entire film, and he actually doesn't really come face to face with Frosty until the end when he's about to get married, and after they acknowledge who he is and everything. they are like suddenly flattering him, which takes him off guard, and then Frosty's wife gives him a kiss on the cheek, and then suddenly he's a good guy. Like, there's no explanation for that other than they flattered him into being a good guy. So, I won't blame this movie too much, because again, they're kind of ripping off a worser premise, but still, yeah, the fact that they needed that Deus Ex Machina hug, you know, the tears brought them back to life, yeah, that was kind of lame.
And
I will say
speaking of
also,
which,
like-
the ice sculptures do not look anything like their parents. I'm sorry.
I will say the like Disney like putting out like, you know, what was supposed to be direct-to-DVD movies on the big screen, like that happened like quite a bit during this era, because that also happened with Return to Neverland and the Jungle Book 2 and stuff like that. So Disney really,
And it's still
like to do that.
happening with like Moana 2.
Moana 2, yeah.
They keep changing their minds, and I'm like, my God, you have something good, and then it goes bad, and then you have something good. It's like, make up your damn minds.
To be fair, I would rather. To be fair, I'd rather they like, you know, for projects like this and that. Like, I would rather they put the manpower into a theatrical production as opposed to being like, oh well, all our Disney Plus content needs to be movie quality, but we're not gonna like treat them like TV shows, even though they will be TV shows. It's like the Disney
treating
Plus,
it like Game of Thrones, goddammit.
yeah, like it took Marvel. It took Marvel several years to figure out, like, oh, people don't just want 6-episode events. And one of the reasons WandaVision was so successful is because, like, it took advantage of the medium. And, you know, like, people want us to do more actual television shows. It's like, you know, and now they're finally treating their shows, like Daredevil Born Again and such like that. But, you know, that's a larger Disney discussion we can get into there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening with like the way they release films in the 2000s, and then releasing films today. And my God, Disney, and also, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the stupid investing in AI bullshit. Which why? Even Eisner knew that was a bad idea.
Do we want to rename the podcast the Disney GPT debate?
Phil, I'm firing you for that. Because if we do that, we're gonna say that, you know, all of a sudden Frozen and Moana have a baby together. That's what it's gonna happen. Oh God.
Trust me, they tried to do that in the early 2000s, and even then they acknowledged it was a bad idea. So no, we're not going there.
And of course,
Yeah.
we're talking about the
All
same
I'll
company
say-
that will sue you into oblivion if you try to use their IP. But now we'll use AI and basically do the same thing with our users so that we can take other characters.
The future is
Disney.
bleak.
The future is dumb. To avoid getting into this any further, we had to bring it up because it's recent events and there's all this stuff going on. It's just Disney has made a lot of bad decisions lately, and unfortunately, the escape clause in my mind is kind of like
personification.
a prime example of bad ideas. Like, it just has all these different plot points. It was a direct-to-DVD that was released in theaters. That it has the budget of a TV show, but it was pushed on theaters. It doesn't have a good semblance of what it wants to be. It's not funny. I don't enjoy it. Sure, we can debate about certain things. I can definitely see Kat's points. I can see Phil's points, but I don't like it.
You didn't
I
say
think
anything
this
about
is the
my
bottom
points.
of the barrel.
Well, sir, I didn't like it.
Well, you see, Mr. Doug, bald points always expire. No, I agree with your points as well, Doug. But I feel like there's nothing that can make me like this film. I like portions of it, but I found it so hard to watch. It's not necessarily bad like, you know, The Legend of Lobo was or Bon Voyage was. It just... I don't like using the word cringe, but it just made me wince. And it's unfunny. It's one long unfunny sketch to me. Doug, final thoughts.
Yeah, as I said, this is definitely a direct to video movie that was decided to be released into theaters because money. There are some semblances of good ideas in it, but they, either take too long on some things or not enough time on others. There's definitely, you feel the fact that this is taking place, much longer after the first two movies. It feels like there's no real growth with some characters, and some characters just outright, they're there and you have to question why they're there, or, why they didn't give more attention to them than they really should have. It's just a muddle. It's a rush job. I'm hoping when we get to the Santa Clauses, that will definitely be a remedy, especially given the fact that, they'll stretch it out over episodes and have more time to focus on things. But yeah, as it is, it's like, I don't really like this movie. I mean, if you like it, like Phil does, hey, more power to you. I'm glad you do. But me, nah, not personally. I don't like it.
Yeah. Phil, counterpoint.
I just think it's neat. Bye, everyone.
Oh, so you're saying it's a potato? Why do you try to keep giving us Santa Claus movies?
I mean, look, is it the best Santa Claus movie? No. As far as on a critical perspective, just looking at the plot and all that, yeah, it's probably the weakest of the three. But from a pure entertainment perspective, I like it. I enjoy watching it the most out of the three. And I think that a large part of it comes from the performances. It comes from, seeing the characters play off each other. It comes from the ludicrousness of that third act and seeing how far things have come from the humble beginnings of the first movie. I just like seeing these characters play off of each other, especially when, you see how much fun everyone had with in the credits. When you go to the credits, they show the outtakes and all the actors playing off of each other there, and it looked like everyone had a relative fun time making this movie, and I think that shines through when watching it, at least for me. I know that plot wise it can be a big mess. It is a big mess, and I can't really refute that. I still think that the best one overall from a plot perspective is the first movie, but I think the best one as far as everything put together, from the vibe to the characters to the individual moments, I think the best one is probably the second movie. I think if I was to watch one to give me that prime Christmas feel and Christmas spirit, I would watch the Santa Claus 2 the most. But as far as the one I watch, that I would watch the most for the entertainment value alone, it would be this one. It would be the Escape Clause. That's generally where I land on this movie.
Phil, I need you to chill.
All right, everybody, chill.
Phil invented chill.
Kat, final thoughts.
I think Eric D. Snyder wrote it best. He said that Tim Allen did the Santa Claus the first time with enthusiasm, the second time with affection, and the third time for a paycheck. That's pretty much how I view this movie. And again, I am biting my tongue so much throughout all this. Looking at this movie on its own, I can just say, oh, it's just a bad film. I can write it off. In fact, again, I've seen this movie before, but because of how just unimpressive it is to me and just, how nonsensical, I forgot a lot of what happened in this. So, rewatching it, I'm like, oh yeah, that happened. But now that I've seen the Santa Clauses, it's now particularly infuriating to me that this movie exists because of all the stuff that I know, occurs. again, I wish so badly to elaborate on just how superfluous this movie is now because of the TV series. But again, we will save that for however long it takes us to get to that. But
Many
just know
Christmases in the future.
But just know, you're all gonna be as angry as I am when you look back on this. Because, like, there is so much, and I get that this was written after the fact. Clearly, this third movie wasn't written in mind with any of that. But it brings to question so many things. And in terms of, like, how, you know, Scott's situation of being forced to be Santa, I kind of look at it, as Fry from Futurama. I assume you've all watched Futurama.
Yes.
Think back to the episode. How dare you? Like, think back to the episode where he goes back in time to when he first got frozen, and he discovered that no, it wasn't an accident that he went to the future. Like, Nibbler made it deliberately sent him there.
Spoilers.
That's yeah. Come on, who hasn't seen Futurama at this point?
Yeah.
But that is kind of similar to what's going to happen in this film. Like, there are reasons, there are explanations. I don't think it all satisfyingly addresses all of the stuff and issues we've had with this trilogy, particularly this film, but it does explain some things. So just letting you all know for the future, like, prepare to sort of have your mind blown in some aspects.
Prepare to fast
prepare
forward.
to hate this film. Yeah, and prepare to hate this film more than you probably do right now.
Yeah. With that being said, there are two things that I can say I enjoy about this film. One, this was the last film that Peter Boyle was in, during his lifetime.
Sad.
All Roads Lead Home was released after his death, but this was the last film to be released during his lifetime. And he's really good in it. Also, Molinator is back again. Art LaFleur as the Tooth Fairy. Some legendary actors, and like they're only in small parts, but like there's some good in this. It's just I can't really get behind a lot of it. In any case, with all that being said, I want to say, despite all of the problems of this year, and this has been a bad year for me, for a lot of us, I want to be thankful for one thing. This has been the most productive year of the Disney debate in years. We have put out more episodes, not even just like the normal amount. Like, I believe we put out like more throughout the decade than we have in the past few years. Like, this year has been very good for us, and I'm thankful to Phil for editing these now. I'm thankful to Kat and Doug for putting up with my illness, and now that I'm knocking on wood here, now that I have gone through Lyme disease twice, I think we're on the mend. I'm thankful that we finally have things up and running again, and we're working on more stuff. The Disney debate started as a labor of love, and the Christmas episodes are always fun for me, because say what you will about some of the bad stuff we have to talk about, it always gives us something to look back to. Like, remember we talked about Cinderella 2, and it simply isn't done. Remember the Scorpion hoedown. We have so many memories.
And I will say, sorry to cut you off, I will say, like, you know, because this year has produced more episodes like than you know, the past few, and it would have even been like 1 or 2 episodes more had we not had those issues with Lobo and
Tower
Almost
of Terror
Angels.
and Almost Angels.
Yeah, so like I definitely think it's all good. It's all good. I definitely think that going into the new year, especially because, like, you know, and again, knock on wood here, it looks like we'll actually be able to have the top 10 films of the year done at a reasonable time. Like, because usually in the last couple of years, we've sadly, like, gotten those out around, like, April or May. and we usually have like this big gap in Disney debate content like for the early parts of the year. Knock on wood, it looks like for once we'll actually be able to have that out in January like it's supposed to. So
Oh my
I have
God.
money.
Yeah.
It's a Christmas miracle.
It's a Christmas miracle. I have money. We're going to see Zootopia 2 in theaters. I want to see Wicked Part 2 eventually. And we're going to be seeing Tron Ares. But, like, we have things on track. And I made a New Year's resolution at the beginning of December 1st, when I started my job again. I'm going to punch 2026 in the face. I'm done sitting back and, you know, saying I'm done being cautious. I'm done saying like maybe I'll do good. I'm like, no. I'm punching this year in the face. We are going to do good. Because after everything that I've been through and we've been through and just the, you know, losing a cat to cancer, having an aunt who now has cancer and is battling it, and a few other things, and my own Lyme disease and health issues and everything else. Sometimes you just gotta take life by the reins, making red coats redder with bloodstains. And I just want to say I wish you a happy holidays, and that, you know, things may be bad, but they will always get better if you punch the year in the face.
And kick it in the nards for good measure.
Wolfman's got nards.
And if I may do my yearly spiel, because I feel like I have to. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Crazy Kwanzaa, a tip-top tet, a solemn and dignified Ramadan, a festive Yule, a rip-roaring Saturnalia, a Festivus to the rest of us, and for everyone that just wants to be miserable, happy shut the fuck up. So, there you go.
Do you want to say anything to end us off, Phil?
Do I want to say anything to end us off? God, you're giving me a lot of pressure here. Look, like Zen, like I think a lot of us, like this year for me has been really really bad. And I think like Zen, like I think both this year and 2024 have been like big years as far as like stagnating in a lot of ways, like in life. And I think for 2026, I really want to, you know, I really want to punch 2026 in the face as well. And I hope all of us can take those steps to like make the second half of this decade just the best that it can possibly be and the most productive it can possibly be. I'm tired of productivity not being there and things feeling like that they've stagnated. And more than anything else going into 2026, I hope that we can all take that next step. Even if we don't achieve all the goals that we hope to, I hope that we can all be on our way to make life much better than it currently is right now.
Doug, any final words?
Amen.
So yeah, you know, obviously, if you know, we've had a rough year in terms of, you know, the headlines, the politics, and everything, but peel that back, and I feel, you know, basically like what we've been saying, we've been, you know, unusually productive, more so than we've been in the past, you know, few years, especially with regards to the Disney debate. I know with, you know, Kat and I, and we've, you know, been living with Remy for a year now, and, you know, we've been setting out to, you know, spend time with family as much as possible, and I think definitely to some extent a little more than we've, you know, spent in the entirety of the time before Remy was there. And in the, you know, spirit of the holiday, we don't typically do much with Hanukkah. I mean, we do celebrate, we, you know, light the candles, say the prayers every so often, like we might meet up, do latkes and everything. But it's, in my family, it hasn't really been a big deal. Usually gets, overshadowed by Christmas. But this year, we did decide to have a little Hanukkah celebration with my aunt. And my uncle had died about 3 years ago, so she's been living on her own. We were just kind of looking for an excuse for her to, see Remy, even though I know she didn't really, do much for, celebrating Hanukkah. But when we brought it up, she jumped at the chance. We have a few family, members just kind of surprise get together in that instant. And by the end of the night, she thanked us for, reaching out and, setting that up. That she was really happy to do it. And I think that's definitely the mindset that we should be having with this time of year is, you never know what little gestures will, make the biggest difference. So, try to be kind as you can, look for ways that you can help and just make someone's life as, happy as possible.
With that being said, in 2026, in addition to everything else, we have a lot planned. We are on episode 109 of the Disney Debate. But within the next 10 episodes, we have Homeward Bound. We have The Misadventures of Merlin Jones. We're heading very, very close to Mary Poppins. We're getting into more marathons of stuff that
Finally,
we
another
had covered before.
There's finally going to be another Walt Disney Animation Studios movie with The Sword and the Stone, which is a movie that I'm half tempted to ask Zen if I can join for. Not because I like it, but because I have thoughts about that movie. I have bad thoughts about that movie.
Ooh, another debate. This will be
Yeah, we have a lot of stuff going on. Eliza likes The Sword and the Stone. But like we have a sequel marathon, we have live action marathon, we have stuff happening in the future. One thing I do want to actually ask you guys, and I'm probably going to leave it to a vote later, but I've actually recently heard that people want us to do another Elseworlds month. We did that a long time ago with Snow White. And granted,
I remember.
we could do stuff with Pinocchio, we could do stuff with Peter Pan, we could do stuff with a lot of things. So if you want to see that, let us know. But we have a lot to go in the 60s, and it's not getting any easier because they keep adding more stuff. Even when we think we're done with the 60s, we find more stuff. There's possibly maybe 80 or so episodes left in the 60s, so we're gonna break it up a lot. We have different movie blocks, we have different stuff that we want to talk about. But with all that being said, we hope you look forward to yet another 109 episodes of the Disney Debate. Happy holidays. I'm Zenith Warrior Princess, the cutest of ghost buns.
I'm Kat McBerry.
I'm Doug McBerry.
And I am Filip Kanzarowski, editor of the Disney Debate, and all of the Bun Squad. Well, half of the Bun Squad, counting Tifa as well.
We have a lot more Disney to debate, but it's always fun to do. I always learn new things. And even when we don't agree, there's always something to talk about. Have a good one, everyone.